So Bernie Sanders won New Hampshire with 76,352 votes. That's according to verified vote totals. And Democratic turnout actually broke the state's record from back in 2008. But not every pundit called this a good thing, noting that Sanders saw a drop in comparison to 2016.
So according to New Republic staff writer Osita Nwanevu, the drop wasn't surprising, tweeting, quote, "It's an unremarkable fact about the different race with a larger field. Folks bringing up now are spinning not having epiphanies." Joining us now to expand on this is Osita himself. Osita, it's great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. We've been wanting to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here.
All
Absolutely.
right, so let's lay out some of the tropes. Let's start with this one. I actually got to ask this on CNN yesterday, right? Bernie Sanders got more votes in 2016 than this time around. Ergo, even though he won, he really lost.
Well, I mean, the basic fact is that Bernie Sanders in 2016 was running against one major candidate. Now he's running against an entire field. It would be very surprising if he matched his vote total in 2016. That would be an impossibly good performance for him. But what we've seen since the beginning of this race, since before this race began, is obviously that a lot of people who voted for Bernie Sanders are looking at a larger field. You know, there are people who went over to Elizabeth Warren, other people who went for some of the other candidates who've now dropped out. But it's just unrealistic to compare what happened in 2016 to a completely different race where you have more candidates, you have different lanes emerging in the primary. It's just a completely different dynamic. And the fact that people were saying this last night as though it was some new revelation is really remarkable. We've seen that in the polling. You could have said this a year ago about Bernie Sanders' support. But to sort of say this now at the cusp or after a victory from the Sanders campaign as though it is some new and shocking fact that leads people or should lead people to be skeptical at his chances, I think is pretty disingenuous.
Yeah, so Osita, one of the interesting things I saw, I mean, I watched all this happen on the Republican side, is it really almost mimics exactly what they said about Trump, which is that it was like a gaslighting on this. They were like, no, Trump has a ceiling of 33%. Right. He'll never break above that ceiling. Right. And weirdly enough, it turns out when you win, a lot of other people come and join your campaign and start to win. What are the coming possible spinning of the narratives on Sanders? Let's say what happened with Trump, he won 52% of the vote in Nevada. If something like that happens, what are they going to say then?
I really don't know. Yeah. I mean, I had thought for months and months and months that if Sanders started doing well, if he did well in Iowa, and if he did well in New Hampshire, as he has now done, then you would see a real barrage of new criticism from the media, from his other opponents, with the premise that he is now the front runner, and they would try to, topple him. I'm really surprised that people are now saying, even after this victory, that he is not actually where he is. There's still a denial about the numbers that I think has delayed the kind of onslaught that a lot of people expected. And if they don't get their act together and understand what's happening is actually happening, he could very easily start racking up a lot of these victories. I think that the challenge for him is actually securing a delegate majority. That's always been the difficult thing. He'd run away with a plurality. But if he doesn't nail it, if he doesn't run away with the delegate count, you're then going to see arguments come convention time that he's not a viable candidate, that he's going to lose to Trump, and then the party should consider somebody else. There's always been an extremely or a particularly large burden for him to actually get that delegate majority.
Right, whereas any other candidate, if they came into the convention with a plurality, they'd be the nominee.
Right.
With Bernie Sanders, not at all clear that the party, if he has a plurality but not a majority, that they would actually go ahead and nominate him, which I think would be an utter catastrophe for the party. It would completely divide the Democratic Party if they took it away from him when he has a plurality. I mean, I agree with you. I did think going to Iowa, I mean, we both predicted that the media they'd say the state's too white, so it doesn't count. The margin's not big enough, so it doesn't count. Like they would give the momentum narrative to whoever came in second, which is exactly what happened. And then in New Hampshire, the same deal. Like somehow Amy Klobuchar, who got fifth and then third, is a more exciting story than the guy who got the most votes in both states. Yeah. Right? Are they actually in denial, or is this like disingenuous? Like, do they realize he has momentum, or just trying to deny him, or have they really talked themselves into this idea that he can't possibly win, he's not doing well, he's not going to be the nominee, and so that's why they're saying this? I
mean, I think the one constant that I run into time and time again when I'm writing about this primary is people who say, well, look, Sanders has this narrow constituency that he's locked down that could get him victory, as you said, in a state like Iowa and a state like New Hampshire. They're not demographically representative of the rest of the Democratic Party. But when it comes to states like South Carolina and Nevada, and when it comes to winning over more a broader swath of Democrats, normal Democrats, Sanders is going to have trouble. This is what people have said for 2 years now. And it's never been reflected by the numbers. Consistently, if you look at Morning Consult's polling on who the second choice pick is of people who support other candidates, including candidates like Joe Biden, more often than not, it's Bernie Sanders. He's not going to have as much trouble as people think winning over moderate Democrats, winning over people of color. He's now, I think, the leading candidate amongst Democrats of color, particularly Democrats of color who are young people. So I think there really is a level of denial that's been set in since 2016 about the breadth of his potential constituency and the strength he has amongst Democrats who are not extremely online. If you look also at the polling on who the most favored candidates are, the candidates with the highest favorability rating, I think at this point in Morning Consult, he's ahead of Joe Biden as a candidate that Democrats like. So this constituency that you run into online that is very, very anti-Sanders is roughly as unrepresentative of the party at large as the sort of Bernie or bust constituency of the people.
Osita, thank you.
For coming.
Great to have you.
I really appreciate it.
Coming up, friend of the show and former healthcare executive Wendell Potter discusses Buttigieg's ongoing attacks on Medicare for All. That is next.